There was a time when I felt lost, like the world was breaking down faster than I could keep up with. Climate news, endless waste, the feeling that nothing I did mattered. Maybe you felt that too, this heaviness that makes hope feel so far away. But here's what changed everything for me. Sustainability wasn't just about recycling bottles or switching off lights. It became a way to rebuild myself, to breathe again, to find hope when everything felt overwhelming. And today, I want to share that journey with you because maybe it can help you too. Before we dive in, I want to ask something simple but powerful. If this message resonates with you, if you believe others deserve to feel this same spark of hope, please like this video, share it, and leave a comment below. Your interaction helps more people find this story, people who might desperately need to hear it right now. Together, we can create a ripple effect, one act of sharing, one spark of hope at a time. So let's begin. This is the story of how I found hope in sustainability and how you can too. Awakening to fragility. I remember the first time the weight of the world truly hit me. Headlines screamed collapse. Forests disappearing, oceans rising, species fading like whispers in the wind. And in that relentless noise, I felt my chest tighten. As if the earth's despair had somehow been poured into me. It was not a distant problem anymore, it became personal. Every choice I had ignored, every small act of convenience, seemed to carve its mark into the planet. The realization was crushing, yet strangely alive. Pain, after all, has a way of opening the eyes that comfort cannot. I asked myself, what am I doing here? Watching the world unravel while pretending it does not matter. The question echoed in the silent corners of my mind, relentless, unyielding, refusing to let me rest in ignorance. Then a thought emerged, fragile yet persistent. What if this collapse is not the end, but a whisper, a signal, a call to awaken? The kind of whisper that nudges us out of our routines and makes the invisible suddenly undeniable. I began to see sustainability not as duty, but as dialogue. It is a conversation between the world and those who still listen. Each step taken mindfully, each choice made with attention becomes an answer, tiny bridge toward something greater than despair. The first seed I planted was literal. I had no illusions that it would save the planet, yet I watched it grow. And with each fragile sprout, something inside me shifted. Hope does not announce itself loudly. It creeps in quietly in cycles, in rhythm, in small miracles. And as the green began to breathe under my hands, I realized sustainability is more than environmental action. It is a form of internal healing, a way to restore faith in life itself. The two are inseparable. When the earth flourishes, we remember how to breathe. I started noticing patterns everywhere. Water flowing, leaves turning toward light. Even the smallest insect working tirelessly, these were reminders that resilience is encoded into life. Even in collapse, life persists, and so can hope. I began to feel connected again, not just to nature, but to myself, to the choices I had avoided, to the responsibility I had neglected. This awakening was uncomfortable, necessary, and merciless in its honesty. And in that discomfort, a promise emerged. The world is not beyond saving, and neither are we. Hope does not arrive as a gift. It must be found, nurtured, and earned through attention, care, and deliberate action. The small acts that spark change began with noticing the smallest things. A forgotten corner of soil, a discarded seed, a drop of water shimmering in the sunlight. These tiny fragments of life whispered that change, no matter how small, could exist even in chaos. I realized that sustainability is not a distant ideal. It is present in every deliberate act, every mindful choice. Washing a cup by hand, choosing what to consume, turning off lights when leaving a room. A gesture became a declaration that life matters, that hope is possible. Every action felt like planting, not only in the soil but in my spirit. The world outside and the world within began to align, as if each leaf, each root, each decision spoke a language I had forgotten. I watched neighbors swap seeds and tools, their smiles small but radiant. Communities forming around care, around attentiveness, around shared responsibility, it struck me that hope is never solitary. It grows in circles and networks, in connections forged through simple acts of attention. Even failures taught me something. The plant that wilted, the compost that rotted, the habit I could not keep, each disappointment became a lesson, a mirror reflecting both fragility and resilience. Sustainability demands patience, and patience demands humility. And yet every time I stumbled, the earth persisted. The wind carried pollen to distant places. The rain fell. Life continued. I began to understand. Sustainability is not about perfection. It is about persistence, about honoring the continuity of life despite human error. I started noticing the patterns in myself: anxiety, doubt, the feeling that my actions were insignificant. These mirrored the chaos in the world. Daily practice through consistent small choices, I began to feel a quiet shift, a subtle rhythm of hope pulsing in my veins. Each morning, I watched the sun illuminate leaves, water puddles, and the texture of the soil. I realized that noticing is an act of care, that attention itself can heal both the observer and the observed. Sustainability, I understood, is a meditation, a communion, a slow dance with life. And in that dance, I began to feel the weight lift, just enough to breathe again. The despair that once pressed against my chest loosened its grip. It did not vanish, never vanishes completely, but it became manageable, transformed into a motivation rather than a cage. By the end of each day, I felt a quiet gratitude that I had never experienced before. Gratitude not only for the earth, but for the fragile yet tenacious hope that emerges when we act with intention. When we align our inner world with the living world around us, listening to the world's pulse, the more I immersed myself in sustainability, the more I realized that the world speaks softly, insistently, in patterns I had long ignored. The rustle of leaves, the rhythm of rain, the whisper of wind through branches. It was as if life itself was trying to guide me towards something deeper. I began to understand that hope is not a gift granted, but a resonance we attune ourselves. 2. The earth teaches patience, listening, and humility. To sustain is to listen, not to control, to participate, not to dominate. Sitting beside a river one morning, I watched currents sweep debris along, yet leave life intact. I wondered how many of us live thinking we must prevent all chaos, when in fact persistence is the natural order, and life finds a way even through the smallest cracks. This realization shook me. If rivers can carry life forward through obstacles, if seeds can sprout from ruined soil, then perhaps humans too can find resilience in their fragile, fractured patterns. Sustainability became more than ecology. It became a philosophy, a lens through which to perceive hope amidst despair. I walked through a city park and noticed the unnoticed: a bird nesting in a lamppost, a bee dancing from flower to flower, leaves unfurling despite concrete boundaries. These small miracles whispered that life persists, that hope is embedded in the rhythm of the natural world. Every observation became a mirror of my inner landscape. My fears, my doubts, my restless mind, they mirrored the chaotic patterns of the world. But just as life endures outside, it can endure within. Sustainability was teaching me to harmonize with that rhythm, and so I started listening differently, not only to the world, but to myself. Each breath became a dialogue, each heartbeat a measure of attention and care. I noticed that the more I attuned to the earth's pulse, the more my own mind calmed, the more my hope strengthened. I began experimenting, trying small acts with intention, watering a neglected patch of soil, composting food scraps, engaging in mindful consumption. Each act became a ritual of renewal, a conversation with existence, a reassurance that life continues even when we are uncertain. With time, I realized that this attunement was contagious. Sharing these practices, teaching others, watching their eyes light up with comprehension and relief, revealed a network of hope extending far beyond myself. Sustainability was not just personal, it was communal, a shared heartbeat connecting lives. By the end of these days, listening became not only a skill, but a sanctuary. I understood that hope is not abstract, not distant. It is tangible, pulsing, present. And once attuned, once listened to, it spreads quietly, insistently, like the river that never stops flowing. The power of human connection. I began to notice that sustainability was never just about the earth. It was about us. It's about the way we inhabit it together. Each action we take ripples outward, touching lives we may never meet, altering the invisible. Threads that connect us all. Visiting a local community garden, I watched people of all ages share seeds, stories, and laughter. There was a quiet joy in collaboration, a profound sense of purpose in tending to life collectively. These small acts, almost unnoticed by the wider world, held an energy that words struggle to capture. It struck me that despair isolates, while care connects. When we act with consciousness, our choices resonate, forming networks of hope. Sustainability, in this sense, becomes an amplifier of empathy, a mirror reflecting our shared vulnerability and strength. Children learning to compost, neighbors exchanging homegrown produce, elders mentoring the young in practices long forgotten. These were not acts of obligation, but of devotion. Devotion to life, to each other, and to a future worth cultivating. I began to realize that every discarded habit, every unsustainable choice, is not just a personal misstep. It is a fracture in a larger web. And every mindful correction, every small act of stewardship becomes a stitch, mending the tapestry of connection. Witnessing this interplay awakened something profound within me. I felt both fragile and mighty, insignificant, yet capable. The world in its vastness could intimidate me, but in the intimate circles of care, I found courage, a renewed sense of agency. I started applying this awareness in my own life, noticing how even simple gestures, offering food, listening deeply, sharing knowledge, could ripple outward, echoing into spaces I might never see. Sustainability became an ethic of relationality, teaching me that the smallest acts can carry immeasurable weight. And in this network of care, I discovered a profound paradox. By giving attention to others and to the earth, I received more clarity, more calm, more hope. The world was not merely surviving, it was teaching, transforming, nurturing. Every moment became an opportunity to witness life persist, to join in its rhythm, to honor the connections that sustain us. I saw the potential for renewal, not in isolation, but in the intertwining of human effort, nature's resilience, and conscious intention. By the end of each day, quiet understanding settled within me. Hope is not a solitary flame. It is a shared fire built by those who act with care, who nurture, who connect. And in that fire, I found warmth, courage, and a vision of the world I wanted to live in. Transforming despair into purpose. I began to see that despair itself carries a message, a signal pointing toward change. The weight of hopelessness, once unbearable, became a guide, showing where attention and care were most urgently needed. Every crisis I observed in the world mirrored a crisis within. Pollution, deforestation, lost species, they were not distant abstractions. They reflected our own internal neglect, our disengagement from what truly sustains us. This understanding shifted my perspective. Sustainability was not merely about fixing the planet. It was about repairing the fractures in our hearts, in our communities, and in the very ways we relate to life. Each act of care became a form of inner healing. I experimented with routines that connected mind and environment, tending a garden, tracking the water I used, composting food scraps. These acts, small, yet deliberate, became rituals. Ways to anchor hope in tangible reality. I noticed how each day, as I invested attention in life around me, my own mental clarity expanded. The anxiety that once pressed against my chest softened. I realized that caring for the world is inseparable from caring for ourselves. Conversations with friends and neighbors deepened this insight. Sharing experiences, failures, and small victories created bonds of accountability and trust. Sustainability, I realized, thrives not in isolation, but in community, in shared purpose. In collective action, I began to document my journey, capturing the subtle transformations, the leaves unfurling, the compost nourishing soil, the small acts of kindness rippling outward. Each moment felt sacred, a reminder that hope is woven in the details we often overlook. And when I reflected on past despair, I understood it differently. It had been a teacher, a catalyst pushing me to see the interconnections between inner health and outer care, between personal action and planetary well-being. I started to notice a shift in my relationships too. By practicing patience, attentiveness, and intentionality and sustainability, I could extend those qualities to others. Life, in all its complexity, seemed to mirror back the care I invested by the close of this chapter. I could feel a profound transformation. Despair had not disappeared, but it had been reshaped, became energy, a call to action, a compass guiding me toward hope. And in embracing sustainability, I found a sense of purpose I had long thought impossible. Asterisk, the healing power of nature. I realized that nature itself became my therapist, my mentor, my silent companion. The soft rustle of leaves, the rhythm of rainfall. Even the stubborn weeds refusing to die all spoke a language that words could barely capture, sitting among the plants. I noticed my breathing align with the rhythm of life around me. The tightness in my chest loosened, my thoughts slowed, and a rare clarity emerged. The earth, in its patient persistence, taught me that healing is not instantaneous. It grows gradually, quietly, insistently. I started to see my mental health and the health of the planet as intertwined. As I nurtured the soil, my own anxieties seemed to dissolve. As I planted seeds, I planted patience, hope, and resilience within myself. The garden became a mirror, reflecting my internal landscape. Some days were barren, some abundant. Some moments of growth appeared overnight, others took weeks. In witnessing this, I learned to honor my own pace, to embrace my own cycles. Each act of care, each mindful interaction with the earth became a form of meditation. Watering a plant, turning compost, observing insects all became rituals of presence, grounding me in the here and now, reminding me that life, even in its smallest details, is sacred. I began to notice subtle changes in my mindset. Frustrations that once consumed me became opportunities to practice patience. Impulses that once led to stress were now moments to pause, to reflect, to choose intentionally. Sustainability was not only a practice for the planet, it was a blueprint for mental clarity, and in these moments, a quiet joy emerged, not the loud triumph of achievement, but a soft, enduring satisfaction that life, when tended carefully, could flourish. I began to see hope not as a distant dream, but as a tangible, living presence. I shared my experiences with others, noticed something extraordinary. Their joy became intertwined with mine. The act of nurturing life, no matter how small, seemed to radiate outward, lifting not only my spirits but theirs as well. I started to realize that hope is contagious. And the more I invested in the life around me, the more resilient my own mind became. Mental health and sustainability were no longer separate. They were reflections of each other, separable, reinforcing, alive. By the end of these days, I felt a transformation that was both subtle and profound. A connection to the earth became inseparable from my connection to myself. And in that connection, I discovered a new form of hope, steady, persistent, and luminous. Like sunlight filtering through leaves at dawn, learning from persistence as the days unfolded, I began to witness the quiet persistence of life. Single sprout breaking through hardened soil became a teacher. I realized that hope often hides in the places we least expect it, emerging where patience meets attention. The garden revealed that resilience is built slowly. It is in the repeated acts, the daily nurturing, the willingness to continue even when results seem invisible. Each small gesture is a declaration. Life matters, and so do we. I noticed the insects tirelessly pollinating flowers, the birds carrying seeds to distant lands. Nature's persistence mirrored what I had been missing in myself, steady, unwavering commitment to sustain, to care, to endure. Even when setbacks came, plants withering, compost failing, unexpected frost ice, saw lessons embedded in loss. Life, in all its forms, insists on balance. Sustainability teaches us to honor failure as much as success, to embrace imperfection with grace. This realization began reshaping my mental landscape. Anxiety loosened and despair softened. The act of participating in life's rhythms became a balm, a reminder that even small contributions ripple outward. Touching places we may never see, I found solace in routine, in consistency. The daily tending of plants, the observation of cycles, the quiet reflection on growth all became anchors that held me steady amid internal turbulence. Sustainability, I realized, is as much about the mind as it is about the earth. As my connection deepened, I noticed subtle transformations in my relationships. Patience, attentiveness, and care cultivated in the garden began to spill into interactions with others. I became more present, more compassionate, more grounded. I started to see patterns, invisible threads linking personal well-being to environmental care. Mental clarity emerges from attentiveness. Hope grows from deliberate acts. Resilience is reinforced through connection. Sustainability is both a practice and a mindset. By witnessing nature's persistence, I began to trust in my own capacity to endure. Life continues, even when chaos surrounds us, and hope becomes tangible when nurtured daily. The ripple of intention. I began to notice that every small act of care carried a ripple, extending far beyond my immediate perception. Watering a plant, composting scraps, choosing thoughtfully what I consumed, each gesture sent unseen waves into the world. These ripples reminded me that sustainability is not a solitary act. It thrives in connection, in the subtle interplay between intention and consequence, between thought and action, between heart and earth. The realization struck with gentle force. The hope we cultivate internally is inseparable from the hope we nurture externally. Caring for the earth is simultaneously caring for the self, a mirror reflecting patience, resilience, and purpose. I observed neighbors planting community gardens, children learning to grow food, elders teaching traditions, long forgotten. Each act of intention multiplied the ripples, creating networks of care that stretched further than any one individual could reach. And within this network, I felt something profound. The sense of being part of a living system, a chain of impact where even the smallest action mattered. The weight of despair lifted slightly, placed by the quiet affirmation that I could contribute meaningfully. The earth, I realized, is patient but not indifferent. It responds to attention, to care, to deliberate action. Sustainability becomes a dialogue, a conversation in which hope is spoken softly, persistently, and powerfully. I began applying this understanding to my own mind. Mental health, like the environment, responds to consistent care. The more I nurtured growth externally, the more my internal clarity expanded. Anxiety softened, despair diminished, and a steady rhythm of hope emerged. I noticed that even failures carried their own lessons. Wilted plants, delayed growth, and unexpected setbacks were not signs of futility, but invitations to adapt, to learn, to refine attention. The ripples persisted, even through imperfection. Through these insights, I began to experience life as a series of intentional gestures, each contributing to both the health of the planet and the mind. Sustainability was no longer an abstract ideal, it was a lived practice, a tangible source of hope. By the end of each day, the ripple of intention became palpable. Seed planted, a conversation shared, a choice made consciously, they all intertwined, creating a pattern of care, resilience, and quiet joy that extended beyond what I could see. In this, I found a new rhythm of living, one grounded in hope, guided by attention, and fueled by the transformative power of intentional action. Hope and action. I realized that hope is not a passive feeling. It is born from action. Every mindful choice I made, every small act of care, became a testament to the possibility of a better world. Planting seeds, tending soil, conserving water, these were not just chores, but gestures of resistance against despair. Each one reminded me that change begins with attention, and that attention is a form of love. I began to see my mental state reflected in the health of the world around me. Neglect mirrored inner turmoil, while care mirrored inner clarity.
House.
Sustainability and self-care intertwined, revealing that nurturing one nourishes the other. Walking through gardens, I noticed stories in every leaf and flower. Each bloom was a quiet victory, a reminder that persistence and patience yield beauty. Even in moments of imperfection, life pressed forward unwavering. Conversations with others deepened this revelation. Sharing practices, insights, and small victories created bonds that strengthened my resolve. Hope, I realized, thrives in community, in shared commitment, and in collective action. Every challenge I faced became an opportunity. A wilted plant, a drought, a failure in planning, these were lessons, not setbacks. They taught adaptability, resilience, and humility. Reinforcing the bridge between mental strength and environmental care, I started to notice subtle shifts in my own mind. Anxiety loosened, thoughts slowed, and a profound calm settled. Participating in sustainability created a rhythm that soothed the restless currents within me, turning worry into purpose. The smallest gestures began to accumulate into something larger. A compost heap feeding soil, a seed sprouting where it was once barren, a neighbor inspired to care all, became evidence that even tiny acts of intention can create meaningful change. I realized that hope is both fragile and resilient. It can be threatened by neglect, doubt, or distraction, yet it persists when nurtured consistently. Sustainability became my anchor, a source of persistent, living hope. By the close of these days, I could feel the transformation deeply. What once felt like overwhelming despair was now a quiet, steady flame, fueled by intentional action, community, and care for the world. Hope, I understood, is not given, it is cultivated, consciously, every single day. Living the change and sharing the hope. I realized that the journey of hope is never solitary. Each act of care, each mindful choice, extends beyond the self, touching lives we may never see, creating ripples that persist in ways we cannot fully measure. Sustainability taught me that transformation begins with attention. The smallest gestures, a watered plant, a shared seed, conscious decision can ignite shifts both within us and in the world around us. I started to see mental health not as a static state, but as a dynamic process intertwined with the health of the planet. Caring for one nurtures the other, and in that reciprocity, I found a profound equilibrium. Each day offered a choice, to act with awareness or to drift in indifference. I chose action, even imperfect, even small. Every effort contributed to a larger mosaic of resilience and hope. I noticed that sharing these practices amplified their impact. Conversations, collaborations, and collective initiatives created communities. Bound by care, responsibility, and mutual inspiration, hope became contagious, spreading through human connection. The patterns of life mirrored my internal landscape. As the earth persisted through seasons of drought and bloom, so too did my mind find rhythms of stability, clarity, and calm. Sustainability became a living meditation, conduit for transformation, and when moments of despair returned, I remembered the lessons learned: patience, attention, and intentionality. These were not mere tools, they were lifelines, pathways. Back to hope, grounding me in the continuity of life, I began to realize that every individual choice matters. In the interwoven web of existence, our actions echo, shaping not only our present, but also the future we collectively inhabit. Each act of care is a thread in a larger tapestry of hope. Now, I invite you to experience this yourself. Notice the world around you, engage in small, intentional acts, and observe how your own sense of hope, clarity, and purpose grows. Your actions are more powerful than you imagine. If this journey touched you, take a step. Like this video to help others find it. Share it with someone who needs hope today and comment your own experiences with sustainability and self-care. By doing so, you become part of the ripple helping hope travel further and ensuring that this message continues to transform lives, including your own.